Hi, my name is Caitlyn Mahoney, and this is my senior project. So I wanted to first give you an example of what I'll be talking about. I have the problem space, which is the kids foster care system, why it matters and why these kids need a little bit of extra help, further research on how I can help those kids, ideation, and then my final product. So when I first started researching, I thought of different questions and the main one was, how can I help foster kids in the foster care system to navigate those difficult lives that they have and minimize those struggles that they have. So in the foster care system, kids are actually 16 to 28 percentile points below all of their peers. They also have a reduction in brain volume and their prefrontal cortex, which is the main part of decision making, is reduced. They have developmental delays such as cognitive function, language, communication, and motor skills. They have a lot of mental health issues as well, PTSD, anxiety, depression, all that kind of due to their unstable environment. Something that I found very interesting as well was when someone experiences trauma, they 90% of their brain is taken up with processing that trauma, which is a large amount of a person's brain, which only leaves 10% for a child to learn everything they're supposed to learn in school, along with growing as a person and learning all those extra skills that you don't learn in school as well. So I started looking at effects of neglect as well, and a child who is exposed to neglect early in life actually lacks gray matter for not only the time being, but for the rest of their life. And gray matter is kind of how a human processes information. It also creates those ridges and grooves in a brain that typically make it so that you have higher intellectual capacity. And the lack of gray matter is associated with lots of diseases such as stroke, seizures, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and traumatic brain injuries, and more. So when I started looking at neglect, I also started looking at how a person attaches, if a person is easily attaches to something and another person, or if they do not do that. And so I actually learned that they attach very easily to other people instead of being wary of it. And so I looked at inanimate objects, and a child who spends more time away from their caregiver actually is more likely to form an attachment to an inanimate object. These are typically soft things such as blankets or stuffed animals but it can really be anything. But it is a huge form of comfort and stress reducer for a child. And it actually was shown that when a child is put in a situation with their primary caregiver, they exhibit the same amount of levels of play and exploration and comfort level as they would if a child had that inanimate object as well, which is quite interesting. And kids who are more susceptible to being separated from their, like I mentioned, separated from their main caregiver are prone to attach to those things. So why this kind of matters to me is there are actually 391 kids over that amount in just 2021, kids in the United States living in the foster care system. And as a camp counselor, I've actually interacted with some of those kids. And as a counselor, you kind of help them to emotionally regulate if need be. And we kind of make sure that those kids, they don't have to worry about their outside of camp situation, their home life. We want to make sure that they feel supported and safe at all times. And camp kind of creates this bubble of safety for everybody that I wanted to kind of incorporate into this project and keep that in mind as far as I wanted that kind of experience to be put in a product as well. I've actually had kids tell me that they've realized at camp that their home life is not actually very supportive as they thought it once was. So I wanted to make sure that I put something out there where it was something that they could feel safe and supported with. So I started looking at alternative therapies because the traditional therapy was not going to be very viable for a product. So I looked at light therapy, which is being exposed to a bright light for a short amount of time, but it is extremely under-researched, and it's only supposed to last for 2 weeks, which is not very long, and I wanted the product to be able to be used longer than 2 weeks. Another one is sound therapy, which I'm sure a lot of people have experienced, where you listen to music to help calm yourself or to allow you to express different emotions. And I found that typically low alpha wave music, helps to calm your nervous system, but different sounds within the like low alpha wave realm would sometimes maybe work for one child but not for another, and I wanted to be able to encompass as many kids as possible. The last one that I researched was breathing. So breathing actually helps to regulate your whole nervous system by taking in deeper and like slow breathing, which is proven to be very effective. And your nervous system and respiratory system are actually it's been proven that it's very connected to your emotions. So by regulating both of those things, you can help to regulate your emotions. And like I mentioned, I found this the most researched and the most likely to work for a very large amount of kids. So working with kids is a huge responsibility. In kind of my experience, I would gain a child's trust, learn where they come from, learn how to help them emotionally regulate, and kind of be one of those few people that the child really is feels safe with, and teaching them healthy coping mechanisms throughout the week. And then when I have to send them back to a less than ideal environment, they actually lose all of that knowledge and all of the healthy coping mechanism techniques because they're not being reminded to use them, because it's a like very long-term growing aspect of like someone's life. You have to like continuously be reminded about using those skills. So they actually lose all of that when they go home, and that's something that I wanted to try and help bridge. So I did a few interviews. This interviewee talked a lot about how foster kids tend to be the new kids since they move from home to home, and they tend to have like a lot of issues acknowledging which emotions they're feeling. So she tries to help them identify those emotions and then teach them how to manage them safely and in the best way possible. She also finds fidgets very helpful for de-escalation as well. This interviewee talked a lot about how a kid in the foster care system has a lot of cultural assimilation and issues because their like group home is extremely different from the environment of a school. They also struggle a lot with risk taking, and that can cause lots of triggers. They also tend to mask a lot of their emotions, so a little tiny thing will set them off, and it seems like it's just the little thing. It seems like for something very little, but it's actually a lot of different things, and that little thing was just the thing that pushed them over the edge. And then she likes to have a plan for de-escalation before the child is escalated, because children tend to have different de-escalation techniques that work for them. This interviewee talked a lot about how kids struggle a lot with different social settings and to navigate those different settings. And then they actually have a lot of gaps in knowledge and information, particularly in problem solving, teamwork, and recognizing patterns due to frequently being moved. They just don't learn those basic skills that a child would in a normal setting. And then with objects that they are very close with, little children tend to keep them in a safe little space and not carry them around with them, versus an older child would keep them very close to them, and they like to show it off because they noticed that when they were kids and they were little and they put it in a little safe place, those items got stolen, and so they keep them safe, like close to them. And she mentioned a lot about emotional regulation being a significant struggle, and also a significant help for kids in the foster care system. So when we typically think about being escalated, we think about being angry, and a normal response would be yelling, throwing, hitting, things like that to release that anger, but it's actually something that you do not want to do because it's a very unhealthy way of expressing those emotions. You want to do something that's a little bit more calming, or a healthy way to exhibit that energy through like exercising, breathing, and drawing, things like that. these are just a few de-escalation techniques. Deep breathing, talking about what you're feeling, talking about a topic the child enjoys, a fidget, just kind of sitting with the child and letting them deal with however they feel that they can. And like I mentioned before, having a plan set in stone helps with de-escalation because different techniques will work for different kids. This is my mood board. I wanted something that was a little bit more nature-like because that's very calming. Something that and having a texture that also feels very nice and is very calming as well. These are different market analysis things that I kind of like took away where they were very interesting. There was a pillow that like helps you like breathe, that like breathes with you to help you fall asleep, an aromatherapy like color changing light, and then a lighted breathing dog where it helps you to like regulate your breathing. So for my product ideation, I kind of gravitated a little bit more towards the nature products that you could move around or like take things on and off as a little fidget to incorporate that as well. These are the products that I kind of like pulled out and then explored a little bit more, and then I eventually ended up on this octopus, which I named Ozzy. So there is a little button at the top of Ozzy's head that turns on the light to help with your breathing. You can also draw anywhere on Ozzy with a dry erase marker to help express your feelings or your creativity, and then all 8 of Ozzy's legs come on and off for a little fidget. This is kind of the exploded view of the product where you have the button, the like main housing head, and then you have a little circuit board holder for that lighting, and then excess wiring holes, and then we have the holes for all the different legs with the magnets. You can take them on and off, and then a battery lid to make sure that keeps held in place so that a child doesn't get into all of that. This is it kind of just together. Then I started ideating branding, and then this is what I ended up settling on for Ozzy the Octopus. And here is Ozzy. So like I mentioned before, the little circuit board has 4 LED lights and it requires a 9-volt battery. And then the button on the top you push down and that starts that light. The light slowly turns on and slowly turns off, and you're supposed to breathe with the light as it goes on and off. And so this is kind of what I'm talking about, where you would push that button at the top of Ozzy's head, and then as the light turns on and off, you breathe in, and then as the light turns on and off again, that is when you would breathe out. So something that I had in mind was all the tentacles are unique, and so there are a couple of tentacles that you can put that hold a little dry erase marker, so it kind of is just all encompassed into one product. Like I had said, Ozzy is an emotional regulation toy to help emotionally regulate your body through breathing and through different healthy coping mechanisms. Why did I choose an octopus? So octopuses are actually like shapeshifters, and they can seamlessly blend into their surroundings, similarly to what foster children have to do. They have to adapt and integrate into different various environments throughout their entire life. So Ozzy is a completely dry erase, where you can draw and color either your emotions or just be creative and draw, which is one of the healthy ways to release anger. Although all 8 legs are able to be attached and detached with magnets, so you can take them on and off, switch them around, figure out which leg goes where, and you can also spin them around, so it's a fun little activity for a child to do as they're trying to de-escalate. That is Ozzy the Octopus, the emotional regulation toy.